Hey folks, this is Kalani. Professions are going to be very important in the War Within, whether you want to craft some of the best gear available, have all of the best extra bonuses and effects to squeeze out every drop of power from your gear, or if you just want to make a boatload of gold, professions are going to be key. Professions will remain similar to what we saw in Dragonflight, and there are quite a few that could make some amazing amounts of gold, especially early on in the expansion. So let's go through each profession, how they work in the new expansion, how you can make some gold with each one, and which ones are shaping up to be the best professions to make some easy gold in the War Within. Now before we jump in, be sure to hit up that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. In Dragonflight we saw a huge overhaul of the profession system, and almost the entire thing will be brought forward into the War Within. There are only a handful of changes, like the addition of concentration and the ingenuity stat. Apart from that, everything should be familiar if you tinker about with professions in Dragonflight. We'll be earning profession knowledge to spend on various specialization trees, we can collect profession gear to improve your stats and crafting efficacy, and we have the same tier and rank system for both raw materials and crafting results, which give you a sense of progression as you level up and skill up. Crafting orders will also be more important this time around, but we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. So how can we take advantage of the knowledge we already have to make as much gold as possible when the War Within launches? Well, it kind of depends on how much effort you want to put into your professions. Gathering professions will still be the easy way to make gold. For mining, we'll have a few different ores and metals to acquire and mine, so you'll be hunting those down all around the new zones. There are also special empowered nodes that provide you with various bonuses, and you can overpower them with a special ability to get even more materials and proc special effects. The effect will depend on the type of node, but usually it just ends up with you gathering more or better materials. Now as for the specializations, Plethora of Ore increases your general mining skill and helps you gather more of each specific ore for the new expansion. Mining Fundamentals gives you 1 vigor whenever you mine a mining node, so you'll be able to dragon ride almost constantly as long as you're finding nodes to mine, and you will eventually be able to mine while mounted. You can also pick up bonuses to get more materials from rich nodes or seams when you find them. And then Mastering the Mysterious further empowers your Elemental Overload spell and lets you get more bonuses and materials from elemental nodes. Now Herbalism should be very familiar at this point if you've ever done it before. We're going to have various new herbs to collect, and you'll be playing dot to dot on the map just like mining, picking up all of your herbs, earning skill points and knowledge, and specializing however you want. Herbalism also has the empowered nodes just like mining, and they're very much the same deal. If you overpower them, you're going to get some special effects and more materials, so it's always great to pick those up whenever you see one on your map. Herbalism also has the same kind of seed planting minigame that we saw in Dragonflight. You can find these verdant seeds while picking herbs, and if you plant them, you're basically just generating a new herb node, so you can plant your own herbs to get more herbs for picking. As for specializations, Bountiful Harvests focuses on improving your skill to help get you those higher tiers of materials, and you can improve your gathering for specific herb nodes. Botany gives you the same bonus of generating 1 vigor whenever you pick a herb node, so you want to grab that as early as you can. It also eventually lets you stay mounted while herbing, so another great efficiency bonus there. This is also where you can get various bonuses to the seed minigame, and you can also learn to use mulch, which can significantly increase the quantity of herbs you get from any node you use on it, so there are some cool bonuses in Botany this time around. And then Overloading the Underground focuses on getting more materials from overloading herbs and being able to use the Overload spell more often. And then Skinning is more or less the same as what you would expect. Kill beasts and skin them for leathers or chitin. This time we're playing with chitin instead of scales, with a chance to get specific materials from certain types of monsters. You can also get carapaces or hides, which are going to be the rare materials this time around, and the higher your skill level, the higher the chance you'll see more of those, which is probably going to be your big money maker as a skinner. As for the specializations, Tanning lets you sharpen your knife to guarantee a carapace or hide from your next skin, which is actually a huge change, so that's less RNG based, which is going to be very nice to see. There will also be passive bonuses to increasing efficacy and yield for leathers or chitin specifically. Harvesting is all about the other materials, so creating fishing lures, harvesting meats for cooking, as well as those species or creature specific rare items. And then luring is all about crafting bait traps and kind of creating your own skinning nodes and allowing you to lure out larger and larger creatures. Now, the most important change for all gathering professions is that getting higher tiers of materials will be harder in the next expansion. So instead of starting at tier 1 and then getting guaranteed tier 2 by the time you've maxed out your gathering profession, you'll now actually always get tier 1 as the baseline, and then as you upgrade stuff and skill up, your chance of getting tier 2 and 3 increases, but you should always still get tier 1 by default with any extra luck or procs. This means tier 2 and 3 materials will just be rarer in general and therefore more valuable, so investing your time into gathering professions could earn you a lot more gold if you can get those tier 2 and 3 materials more reliably. Gathering professions are the easiest way to make some quick gold, especially early on. Just spend some time playing dot to dot, farming everything you can, sell it on the auction house, and you're done. No extra stress or having to worry about where to get materials for crafting, just farm and sell. Double gathering is always a good option at the start of any expansion. I usually pick up herbing and mining just to make a bit of gold as I level on most characters, so if you really don't want to dig around into crafting or do anything that takes a bunch of effort, I would stick to mining and herbing. Now, if you are interested in doing a spot of gear crafting in the War Within, you're going to want to pick up Tailoring for cloth armor, Leatherworking for leather and mail armor, or Blacksmithing for plate armor and the vast majority of weapons. Tailoring is kind of what you would expect. They are able to learn and craft gear for every typical armor slot, so if you want to craft cloth gear, you'll need to level up your tailoring and specialize into the pieces that you want to focus on first. As a special bonus, tailors will also be able to make these profession-specific bags that provide a minor bonus for those professions. These will likely be quite expensive, so they should be able to make you some good gold if you can get the recipes early enough. Every serious crafter will want to get their hands on their specific bag eventually, so there will be plenty of business here. Tailors can specialize in crafting each individual gear slot better, as well as general tailoring bonuses. They can go for Dawn and Dusk special crafted gear, which is a set of embellishment gear that could either be very powerful or completely worthless, creating intermediate materials and improving things like spell thread crafting, or improving general tailoring efficacy and their profession stats. Leatherworking deals with both leather and mail armor, typically using different materials. Just like tailoring, there are recipes for gear that goes in pretty much every gear slot for both of those armor types, so you'll be covering quite a few classes if you level up a leatherworker. Now, you may think that having both leather armor and mail armor will increase the potential gold making of leatherworking, and you're kind of right, but not until we get further along in the expansion. Because the rank 5 crafts are where most of the gold is going to be, and because you need to specialize with your knowledge to get to rank 5, you won't be able to craft all leather and all mail options at rank 5 for quite a while. So you are still limited by knowledge just like everyone else, so having those extra recipes doesn't mean too much, at least early on in the expansion. They also have a lot of embellishment gear that they can learn and craft, but again, that will only be important if the gear itself is powerful, and we won't know about that until the season really starts up for real. So you might be able to make some good gold with leatherworking. It's all going to come down to crafting gear by the looks of things. For their specializations, they can focus in on general leatherworking skill points and profession stats. They have one big tree for all of the leather armor, another tree for all of the mail armor, and then the last one deals with zone-specific special equipment and recipes. So that's where the embellishment gear gets buffed up, and there are some other special items you can craft in there as well. Moving on to blacksmithing, they're going to be able to craft all of the plate gear in very much the same way, so that's going to be a good way to make steady gold over the course of the expansion. But blacksmiths also make a wide variety of weapons, which can actually expose them to almost every class, giving you one of the largest potential markets out there. Weapons are also usually one of the first items players craft in a new expansion or season, so there is huge gold potential making there. The drawback is that you do still have to specialize. You won't be able to get each weapon up to rank 5 right away, so you will have some important decisions to make. Do you go for daggers or for swords? Different classes will want different weapons, so you want to specialize into one or the other early on, and then work on expanding from there. For specializations, they can buff up their ever-burning forge mechanic, which seems to be a bit lackluster right now, but could provide some good bonuses later on. Means of production focuses on non-crafted gear goods like tools, weapon stones, and crafting alloys. Weaponsmithing is where you can focus on the various available weapons, and then armorsmithing is a big tree dedicated to every piece of plate gear that you can craft. Moving on to jewelcrafting, they should be pretty good in general if you want to do a bit of crafting and supplying the market with gems. Crafted rings and necklaces are usually quite sought after, so you should be able to make some good money there if you can get to rank 5s early on. And with there only being 2 major categories here, rings and necklaces, it's much easier to specialize for that when compared to things like blacksmithing, where you have to narrow things down to individual gear slots or weapon types, so that is a bonus for jewelcrafting. There is going to be a special ring, the Binding of Binding, which has some rather unique effects, and it could very well be the next big gold maker, just like the Elemental Lariat was in Dragonflight, but that all comes down to tuning of the various embellishment effects. Jewel crafters will also be supplying everyone with cut gems, which can sometimes make you good gold, but more often than not it's a bit of a gamble. The epic gems should be a good moneymaker early on though, but you may end up needing an alchemist to fuel that endeavour, which we'll talk about under the alchemy section. Through their specializations, they can focus in on gem cutting and earning various different recipes for the gem cuts, crafting jewelry like rings and necklaces, or increasing your yields from prospecting and creating various intermediate materials. Now, Inscription is a bit of a weird one. They have a few useful tools going into the next expansion, like being able to craft Vantus runes as per usual, and you can craft contracts that give you bonus renown and rep gains. There's also the Profession Knowledge skill books, and you can also make staffs and offhands, so at least there's a little bit of crafting gear potential here too. But the Darkmoon cards and decks are arguably the most important parts of Inscription if you want to make gold, but getting Darkmoon cards may be harder in the next expansion as they only drop randomly. You can't make them this time around. You can increase your drop rate with Profession Knowledge and specializations though, so having Inscription and just putting points there could be a good source of passive gold if the cards end up being good. Another big change is that instead of upgrading the deck and making it a scaling trinket, you instead turn the Darkmoon decks into an embellishment edition to add onto other pieces of gear, which is a totally different way to take advantage of the deck's powers, so they could end up being good embellishment options, and therefore make you a lot of gold by selling them, but Darkmoon cards could end up being bad, so it's a bit of a risk because Inscription doesn't have a lot else going on here. If Darkmoon cards and their decks and effects are really powerful, you could make a whole bunch of gold, but if they're not, you may end up wasting a lot of gold leveling up your Inscription. Now they can specialize into general profession skill points and profession stats, focusing your points into milling and creating inks to generate more materials from your herbs. There's one tree that focuses on crafting weapons and profession equipment, and then the last page is for Darkmoon cards, specifically obtaining them more often and being able to change them about as well, and you can craft contracts, missives, and Vantus runes in here too. Engineering is a bit of a weird one, as it usually is, but a lot of the fun in here seems to be for personal use rather than for selling or for making gold. So if that's your goal, engineering might not be the right pick. They do have a gun, the only ranged weapon craft available to any profession now, so that's the only crafted ranged weapon that hunters will be able to use. There are a bunch of devices that will be very useful in group play especially, and then they also have a lot of engineering specific gear like the braces and goggles that allow them to equip and use their tinkers, so pretty much the same as Dragonflight. But what is new are these new potion bombs. There's one of power, which provides primary stat for up to 5 allies, the one of recovery increases your party's healing taken by up to 10%, and then the one of speed increases movement speed for your party, so instead of using your potion cooldown on a personal potion to buff yourself, you can use it on this group potion instead to buff your party. The curious part here is that the bombs themselves don't say they need engineering to use, and these should be quite potent when in the hands of a tank or a healer, as they can then boost the damage of their DPS instead of just themselves, which will most likely end up being more valuable. I can see these being used in a lot of group content, including raids in Mythic Plus, so you could encroach on the alchemist's market here if these potion bombs end up being good in group play. You'll be able to specialize into crafting the special engineering items and equipment, including guns for all the hunters wanting a crafted weapon, devices lets you craft your explosives and tinkers more efficiently, or you can get general bonuses, profession stats, and increase your skill when crafting specific parts and cogwheels. Alchemy has the same kind of setup as usual, lots of potions, which should hopefully make you some decent gold as long as you can make the rank 3 versions. That's what most endgame content players will be wanting to pick up from the auction house, and the raiders especially will pay a premium for getting the good stuff. There are also some new flasks, which are kind of the same deal. If you do go with Alchemy, I would keep an eye on which flasks the class guides are saying are the best for most classes, because those are the ones most folks will be buying. Potions and flasks can have small margins sometimes, but with a new concentration mechanic, you'll probably just be selling that instead of relying on RNG this time around. The other major gold maker for Alchemy could be transmutes. You can transmute a whole bunch of stuff into other stuff, but the one I want to highlight is the Gleaming Glory transmute. This seems to be the only way to get your hands on the Blasphemite Raw Gem, which is the new epic gem used in a lot of high-end jewel crafting recipes and for the new epic gem crafts. So focusing in on transmuting and being able to get these in production early on could make you a lot of gold as well. Alchemists will be able to specialize into general alchemy bonuses and gaining skill in any potion that uses specific herbs and ingredients. The flasks tree is much smaller than what we had in Dragonflight, so you should be able to fill that up quite quickly. If you can believe it, the potion tree is even smaller with only 2 nodes, so getting yourself to the point where you can spam flasks or potions could be very easy this time around. And then the last tree focuses on transmutations of all kinds. Now, enchanting is a little bit different. It's a crafting profession, but it's also kind of a gathering profession too, because you can disenchant your spare gear or loot to get the enchanting materials. So if you want a really easy crafting profession, or maybe just something to go alongside your tailoring, enchanting can be a good pick. You can simply disenchant your spare loot and then sell the materials. That's not a bad way to make some passive gold, especially early on when the crystal materials are typically less available. The enchanted crests required for higher tiers of crafted gear will also be returning for the War Within, and they can only be made by enchanters, so getting your hands on those recipes and filling in crafting orders for them is a great way to make some easy gold. Apart from that, you'll be looking at enchants and selling those. Enchants are typically pretty good gold, especially if you can get the tier 3 crafts early on, so you can just make a boatload of gold with enchanting, but it's still going to require quite a bit of effort if you go that route, unless you just disenchant stuff and sell that. So it's going to come down to how much time and effort you want to put in. Now, something that is even more important in the War Within is the crafting order system. If you're running with a crafting profession, crafting orders are going to be how you make the big bucks. You can't directly craft most items or recipes for other players. You have to go through the crafting order menu. Crafting the higher ranks of gear is one of the best ways to make gold with professions, especially if you can set yourself up to get rank 5 crafts of specific recipes early on. You will need to spam trade chat to get private orders if you really want to make bank though. There is also going to be a new kind of crafting order too, called patron orders or NPC orders, which are going to come in quite regularly. These will be the main source of profession knowledge and profession acuity, so if you want to go with a crafting profession, you will have to interact with the crafting orders more in the War Within, because that's how you're going to be able to specialize in your trees. On the flip side of things, crafting orders are how most folks will be getting their higher tiers of crafted gear made. We will still be collecting sparks, so if you want to use those sparks to craft some pretty high item level gear and get some easy gear upgrades, you'll need to be placing crafting orders and finding crafters to get that stuff done. I guess one major advantage of setting up your own crafting profession then, even if you aren't interested in making gold, is to eventually craft your own spark gear, so you can avoid having to actually find a crafter to do it for you. So if you don't like crafting orders or having to deal with them, I would probably just stick to gathering professions and enchanting. You don't have to interact with the system quite as much, and you can earn just as much gold. I would strongly consider you put in a little effort into understanding crafting orders though. You will open up a lot more gearing options if you get your head around them. So where does this leave us? What professions should you actually pick? If you want something easy and you don't want to interact with crafting orders too much, go with gathering. Mining and herbing are usually the best bet here, but you can also make some good passive gold with enchanting too by disenchanting stuff and selling those materials. So easy professions are gathering and enchanting. If you want to make and sell gear, almost any crafting profession will do fine. Jewelcrafting was one of the better options for the start of Dragonflight, but that was mainly because of the elemental lariat and the epic gem cuts. A lot of this will come down to the best embellishment options though, which kinda leaves the field very even. Most crafting professions will be just as good as the next one, and because you have to specialize in specific trees and points to be able to craft rank 5 items now, I don't think any one profession will be significantly better at the start. Where you spend your profession point is going to be very important though. It's also kinda dangerous to chase the embellishment gold train because balance tuning changes could pull the rug from under you and leave you with a lot of spent knowledge with nothing to show for it. I would stick to a profession that benefits you personally and then just try to make some gold on the side. If you want to make your own gear eventually, pick a crafting profession that fits your class and the armor type it makes, and you can slowly but surely become the master of your own crafting destiny. And then if you want to save some gold while crafting your own gear, pick up the gathering profession that complements your crafting profession. So mining for blacksmithing, skinning for leatherworking, and then you have some freedom for tailoring, but I usually pair it with enchanting. But those are the best professions for making some easy gold at the start of the War Within expansion, so that's it for this video. If a lot of this profession stuff went over your head, don't worry, we will have a beginner's guide to professions video coming through soon, which will make sure everyone knows how all of this works before the expansion starts up, so everyone's on an even playing field. What professions are you going to run with, and what are your crafting goals? To make a boatload of gold, craft your own gear, or maybe something else? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to all of our members here on YouTube. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can find links in the description or click the join button just below the video. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful in any way, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you're always kept up to date. Thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.